Okay, here we go. Call the meeting of Tuesday, April 9th, Municipal Airport Authority to order, and roll call, please.
Hagan.
Aye.
Berg.
Aye.
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 Aye. Before we start, I'd like to call on John Straker for purposes of introduction, please.
Sure. With us today, we have our group leader from Meeting Hunt, the aviation group leader, John Fauché. John's in town visiting today. We're going to meet with the airport, meet with some employees, and checking out our Fargo operation.
Very good. Welcome.
Good to be here.
Thank you. Okay, item number 1, approve the minutes of the regular meeting held March 12th, 2024. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, sign. Motion carries. Item 2, approve the airport vouchers totaling $443,783.12.
Motion.
Is there a second? Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call, please.
Hagan. Aye. Berg.
Aye.
Asquith.
Aye.
Ekman.
Aye.
Capitan.
Aye. And approve the individual vouchers. Item M is withdrawn. So the other vouchers, A through O, with the exception of M.
Motion.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call, please.
Hagan. Aye. Berg.
Aye. Aye.
Ekman.
Aye.
Aye. Item number 4, receive the February 2024 financials and final December 23 financials.
So the information was in your packet. There was also 2 pages for each that Mr. Berg and I worked on with the Ide Bailey team. Everything is on track. You have the final 2023 numbers there, and then the January through February operations only statement. This is the format that they worked on after a conversation we had with the Ide Bailey crew. So, do you have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, Sean, would you have any recommendations to amend any budget items given the actuals from 23?
Not at this time.
Okay. Just noting, some of the significant differences. The one, and perhaps we can touch on this with the audit review, is I think we should just walk through the asset reclassification. 21 million. It's quite a substantial adjustment there. What's happening in that reclass? But just to note that our operating income exceeded budget by quite a bit, which again could tie back into the adjustment of the assets, but there were several revenue items. The expense items seem to track well, but some of the revenue items undershot a little bit in 23. That's all I have.
Any further discussion?
Move to accept.
Motion's been made to accept. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call, please.
Hagan. Aye. Berg.
Aye.
Asquith.
Aye.
Ekman.
Aye.
Aye. Item 5, receive the 2023 audit documents from Grady Marks.
Thank you. The bound copies. Everybody has an electronic copy. Anybody in the audience wants one, Darren will have it posted on our website if it's not already.
Good morning, and thanks for having me. I plan to go through things similar to how I did last year. Kind of a very quick, high-level overview of the audit report. Maybe a little brief on the audit process, and then feel free to interject and ask questions as you have them. At the end of the presentation, I'll go through, or I'll ask for questions at that time too, and Sean, feel free to interject or add some details as you wish. A couple things from the initial standpoint. There used to be an audit committee letter that we would issue in with the audit report, and now that's just presented orally, which basically is a run through of the audit process. No major accounting issues, no difficulties performing the audit, no disagreements with management. There was one new standard this year related to subscription-based IT arrangements. We refer to those as SPIDAs. Those didn't have any material effect on your financial statements, so you won't see any change on that. And what that was basically like IT leases is what I'd call it, similar to the lease standards from the prior year. Now, if you had an IT arrangement like a cloud-based multiple year agreement, we would set those up and amortize those, but those didn't have a material impact. There's nothing really on the horizon that's going to significantly impact as far as accounting standards are concerned either. So should be no changes going forward. Getting into the audit report, keep in mind I'm going to be going with the page numbers. So if you're following along via electronically, I think you probably have to add 2 to the numbers I'm going to give you. So starting on page 2, this is the independent auditor's report. We've issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, which is considered a good or clean opinion, that the financial statements are fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. It is management's responsibility for all the numbers within the financial statements, including the footnotes, and then it's our responsibility to ensure that they're reasonably stated, and that's what our opinion is stating, is that they are. We'll get into the fact that we do help put the financial statements together here in a minute, but we do that, and then we have management review and approve those financial statements just to ensure that they look accurate. The second section of the audit report starts on page 6 and runs through page 11. This is the management's discussion and analysis section of the audit report. This would be the section to read through if you're looking for just some highlights. It's condensed, but it does have some additional information put together by management. It does have comparative information as well, so if you're looking for kind of where things were last year versus this year, once again on a condensed level, you're going to see that in this section. The first audited financial statement starts on pages 12 and 13, and this is known as the statement of net position. This is basically your balance sheet. So if you look at the bottom of page 13, you're going to see the overall net position for the airport authority was $195,610,333. The line above that you see, $57,678,618, that is the unrestricted portion, which is then not tied down into your capital assets. That's the available, basically the number that you have available to spend that's not earmarked or tied down for any restricted purpose. The only other thing I guess I'll point out on this page is that there are estimates within net pension liability just related to your involvement in ND PERS. There's an actuarial study that goes along, and basically you put your piece of the pie on the financial statements. Overall, there's a liability of about $2 million. It's really an accounting exercise related to a GASB standard. It's not money that you actually owe. Even if you had the money to pay it off, there'd be no money to pay. You still pay your bills to ND PERS like you would their approved contribution rates. So wanted to just point that out. We'll get to the income statement here in a minute, but the other thing that I guess I put down for notes is that number that was second from the bottom on page 13, that unrestricted portion, was up almost $11 million from the prior year. So that, once again, that would be the change that wasn't reflected in your capital assets. So when we get to the overall change, you're going to see some differences as far as the capital asset increase as well. So if you look on the pages 14 and 15, this is the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position, basically an income statement. And so page 15, 3 lines to the bottom, you're going to see the overall change in net position of $27,832,389. Keep in mind that a couple lines above that, you get some state grants and federal grants that are related to capital purchases. So when you're looking at that, those numbers come in as revenues. When you spend those, they are not shown on this statement. today, they are capitalized and then depreciated over time. So there's a little bit of a timing difference there. So the number I kind of like to take a peek at is on page 14, that bottom number, the operating income. That's $12,872,086. So that is a positive number. The prior year was $3,562,865. One of the things that's affecting that number is two lines to the top. You can see operating grants for COVID-19. So that is specific to some of the CARES money that came in. And so because you can use that for operations, that's where it's been classified in this section. So at some point that those monies won't be there anymore. So last year that number was like $6,751,662. So you can see that was up quite a bit for 2023. Not sure if this is going to be confusing, but I tried to take out the effects of the CARES Act money on that operating income, and last year you'd have been a deficit $3,188,797. This year, a deficit $1,839,734. Without that COVID money, you were actually up $1,349,063. So lots of numbers I'm throwing at you, but just to kind of give you an idea of how I would look at that, because it's hard to compare apples to apples with some of the COVID money because it's obviously very unique. That also includes depreciation expense of about $5.3 million, which of course is non-cash as well. Pages 16 and 17, this is the statement of cash flows. Page 16, about 5 lines from the bottom, you're going to see the overall net increase in cash and cash equivalents was up $9,698,761. This obviously, you had plenty of cash. The does not include your changes in investments per se, and this is always subject to some timing differences between when you receive grant dollars, for example, versus when you spend them, or just spending money down in December versus January. So just keep that in mind that the cash number obviously did have a positive change, but it is subject to some timing variances. The next section in the audit report is pages 18 through 40. This is the footnote section to the financial statements. I'm probably not going to go in much detail here, but it does include all of your significant accounting policies, as well as lots of information on the net pension liability, which I brought up before. Currently don't have any debt. Capital asset activities in this section as well. So for right now, let's go to pages 45 and 46. This gets into our basically our internal control compliance letters. And pages 45 and 46 is the government auditing standards report. And so this is really a high level overview of your internal control structure as a whole. So we do have 2 repeat findings related to auditor preparation of the financial statements, as well as separation of duties. And so lots of entities your size have these same 2 findings. And what we're looking for as far as mitigating those risks, we do think that you have in place. Reviewing and approving bills by somebody independent of the person paying them would be helpful on the separation of duties. Obviously, you have a fee account involved too, which helps. And then same thing goes for auditor preparation of the financial statements. They do get reviewed and approved by management once we get them drafted together, so that we have another set of eyes looking at them to ask questions and sometimes help reclassify items that look incorrect. So that does happen. Then lastly, pages 47 through 49. This is the Uniform Guidance Report, also known as a single audit. Because you're receiving and spending over $750,000 of federal awards, you're required to have this separate single audit. And we tested the airport improvement program. We have an unmodified opinion on that, so we don't have any findings or issues related to our testing of that program. And then just lastly, page 50 shows the different 2 buckets of federal dollars that you're receiving from that airport improvement program. A little bit over $21.2 million in federal awards that get spent down. So once again, pretty quick run through of the audit report. I'd be happy to answer any questions or circle back to any pages if you have.
Mr. Chair, one question. There was a notation from prior year and this year that we were deemed a high-risk entity, not because of our actions, but just because of the prior activities of the city, and nothing the city did. It's just a circumstance, correct?
True statement. So when you're going through to determine high risk or low risk auditee status, you go through and determine if the EIN number itself had a single audit. And because it was combined with the city 2 years ago, you have to have 2 years of your audits that have gone through without any issues to be a low risk auditee. So next year you will be a low risk auditee. So nothing that anybody did wrong, just simply it was under a different ID number. So
25 audit for 24 will state that it, based on continuation, will be a low risk or not a high risk.
true statement. Yep, next year's audit, the 2024 audit will 20% next year, or 2025 will be low risk. True statement.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I received some questions about fraud and different things, fraud policies. I didn't think I had very good answers to them. What was the result of that?
So one of the requirements that we go through is to determine if there are any items that come up to the board level or any other time that indicate a fraud risk. And it goes into our risk assessment process. And so when we go through, if there were anything A, that happened, or B, that you're concerned about, those kind of things develop or go into our work papers. And so when we do our risk assessment process, a lot of our testing revolves around revenues, receipts, those kind of things. So we do more tests in there at that area. But there was nothing else that came up that related to any kind of a finding or overall issue that we would have reported this on. So I'm not sure if that's answered your question.
And then, Mr. Chairman, the other question brought up as we look at financials, could you just walk us through the asset reclassification? Seems to be a substantial change, but I think it's pretty simple once you.
Yeah, and I guess maybe Sean, I'll defer to you to. I'm not positive what the reclassification was. Is this the reclassification for capital assets or?
It will be, yeah, projects that have been completed that we received quote money, and then also North GA. So they would just reclassify those off of a different place on the balance sheet.
Okay, so and I'm guessing here a little bit, but the construction and process. So I'm not sure if that's what this relates to, but when we go through each year, when we do our capital asset testing, we try to make sure that all the different projects are separated out within construction project process. And so as those projects get completed at year end, they get moved into a capitalizable or depreciable category. So for example, if you finish something within a building, it would get reclassified out of the construction process into the building. And then that's when it starts being depreciated. And so that is likely when we went through with Sean and his team to determine which projects were substantially complete by December 31st, and then they moved it up to a different category.
So the Exit Plaza East Economy Lot, the security system. There's a bunch of different ones. Part of the snow removal equipment. Some equipment that we purchased. So yeah, it's just moving it from one spot over to the balance sheet then to capitalize. So
we can certainly provide with like the different assets that were capitalized during the year, just to kind of give you an idea of.
But just
what
a
was
large
capitalized.
number and
Yeah,
just a little detail to it would help.
it'll be larger. It'll be larger going forward with
Oh, yeah.
the garage and the other stuff. So
Mr. Chair, the reclassification has nothing to do with the reimbursement of any federal grant dollars. It's purely completion of project, separate of any reimbursements.
true statement. The projects we go through in pretty good detail to try to match up the timing with, as you spend things, then we try to get the reimbursement side at the same time. It doesn't necessarily mean as much because the revenues are on this statement, the capitalizable items are on the other statement, so it's harder to tell that. But we do go through pretty good detail to ensure that those get matched up so that each year you have the activity for both expenses and revenues on the same side. And it is worth noting that obviously you have lots of different projects that are going to be happening. As those get capitalized, you're likely to see the depreciation expense number increase at some point in time, especially when the grants I won't say dry up, but finish the projects that they're working on, you're going to see probably a flip flop on some of the operating income just because of that. So don't be concerned. It's just a timing difference.
Mr. Chairman, the last question I'd have, and you've got the notes, we don't have enough staff for separation of duties. What would we have to do to avoid that finding? How many people do we need to hire? What would be and what would we have to do as far as preparing the financials?
So, a common question, and it's hard to answer. I'll start with the separation of duties issue. So the risk is that you have basically two people within the office here that are handling everything. So one person's gone, for example, the other person's going to have to step in and do that activity. So ideally, at least 3 people in the office. And then at that point, what we're looking at is the same person shouldn't receive, I'll use cash receipt as an example. You receive the cash receipt, bring it to the bank, put it into the software, and then reconcile it. You do have things with the fee accountant that help with that process. So I do feel like even though it is a risk, it's not as significant of a risk as a smaller entity would be without that. But the only entities that typically don't have the separation of duties issue are big finance accounting departments. So I'd say at least 3. And then at that point, you have to make sure that you have something in place, or if somebody's gone, that person still can't do more than the one process. So that's probably on that.
And our cash transactions, I would imagine, are minimal.
I think the risk now is more about just like bank transactions, like things directly from the bank, because of all the EFT options that there are out there. Vendors are now starting to require payments through the bank transfers, those kind of things. I'm seeing more risk there than probably the receipt side of things, because they're a lot of times automatically deposited.
And then the other finding, preparation of financial statements. What would we have to do there to avoid that?
So this one you're probably a little bit closer on. So if either Sean and or the fee accountant would be able to prepare these financial statements materially correct, we could get rid of that finding. And so the risk has been there's these new accounting standards that pop up that we feel like that there's more error opportunities. And so let's just say that you did try to do that. That would mean that we'd have no audit entries. And then we'd come through and you probably provide us with a draft of these financial statements that we would go through and just make sure it's materially correct. If that were to happen, that finding would be gone. But if we came across something where we're like, well, this wasn't done correct, we'd be right back to where we are at. So it's kind of a cost benefit analysis. We have the software and built-in time, I guess, to prepare these. If your team wanted to try to do that, that would be an option.
There's no way.
Yeah.
Most airports our size, they just have their auditor do it.
This is the common practice. It doesn't alleviate the fact. The real risk is that we're looking at a financial statement that we're putting together, and so there's that conflict of interest that we're trying to say that there is an issue that if, let's just say there was something that was materially wrong, it's still your responsibility, even though we help put it together. So that's what we're kind of trying to say, is that the risk is there that could happen, but we do think that it's mitigated properly. And like I said, it's a very common finding. Obviously, it's nice if you don't have any findings, but there is a cost to trying to either hire that out or do it internally.
Even Hyde Bailey told us way back when it's a bigger risk if we do it versus having them do it. It's the same findings. The Falls has the same conversation. So we don't want the responsibility.
Mr. Chair?
And yes,
John brought up a question earlier about fraud control.
Yeah.
And I guess I'd like to go back, and the fact that we have outside consultants that grant review, and I say grant perfect, not that probably the right term for Mead and Hunt, but review it have outside review of fee control, to what extent is that mitigating? And you consider that in your statement?
So from an outside audit standpoint, it definitely does help when we sit down and talk with the fee account to ensure that they're not, how do I say this? Just because they're involved doesn't necessarily mean that the fraud risk isn't still there. It depends on how they're doing their work. So if they're just simply taking this, putting it into the software and not asking any questions, I would say that doesn't mitigate the risk very much. But I do believe that you're working with your fee account, that she is or her team is asking questions, and there's a lot of back and forth that seem to be happening that I think would help mitigate the risk of something materially happening related to fraud.
Any further discussion?
You want to talk about the PFC audit as well?
Yes,
on the
I-
record.
Yep, I do have the PFC audit as well with me, and this once again is a separate audit required when you're receiving passenger facility charges. And there's a guide that gets provided for us to basically go through a list of items to test. And we have an opinion on this that's also considered a clean or good opinion. So this is fairly stated that the passenger facility program was done properly, basically like your single audit was in the audit report. This is the same idea. With here, we have a cash basis summary of your passenger facility charges and uses, and similar to other airport authorities that we work with, basically as we get those in, those have been earmarked for certain capital projects along the way and spent down to basically pay the airport authority back for those purchases. And so that's, there's nothing left over. Those all get spent by the end of the year. And then once again, a summary of auditor results, which just indicates what there was related in the audit report and no findings related to the PFC audit that we did. So once again, a clean report.
Mr. Chair, move to accept.
Motion's been made to accept. Is there a second? Is there a second?
I second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call, please.
Engen.
Aye.
Berg.
Aye.
Cosgrove.
Aye.
Aye.
Capstone.
Aye.
Thanks, Brian. Did you get a sheet?
Okay. Number 6. Receive update regarding parking structure and elevated walkway project and temporary parking plan. Mr. Stroh.
Good morning. We're excited to show you an updated rendering and then also our updated DD estimate, which has some, it's a little better than an estimate because we actually have a large number in that it's been bid already. We originally thought about the idea of we were going to ask for a GMP today for the precast, but we've been messing around with the precast contractor who was apparently low by quite a lot, about $1 million. So we're working on some finishes, and then they volunteered some possible VE items that have to do with the next package, which is the footing and foundation package. So what we're hoping to do is right now we have the footing foundation package out on the street, and we'll be bidding that on the 18th. And then on the 23rd airport authority meeting, we'll be coming with hopefully with the GMP for both of those. So next slide. So this is from the south. This is kind of in the parking lot in front of the new terminal area. This is looking down that street. The Skyway is something that we're going to be starting right away here, probably next week sometime. Actually have a meeting with the structural engineer this week just to kind of set the stage. We anticipate that being maybe a couple of month process. We'll be coordinating with Mead and Hunt with regards to finishes in it. We took the finishes up. So all the finishes in the Skyway and the lobby are going to be in the Skyway price. And of course, Mead and Hunt's been doing the interior design, so we're going to work with them to have them pick materials for the Skyway, flooring, ceiling, all those kind of things. Yeah, it's exciting.
Are you satisfied with the material that the low bidder came in on the precast?
Yeah, I think, yeah, we are. We had them do some other samples and we're getting really good results. And so we're going to be doing a little tweaking yet, and then we'll update the rendering from a color perspective a little more. And then we'll end up having a large sample here for you guys to see. I have some concrete samples here after the meeting that would be fun to show you guys. But we basically have 3 finishes on it. We have a polished finish that's on the staircase, and so where those kind of stripes go vertically. The center one is a shear wall. The ones on the twins are stairwells, and that's a polished finish we have kind of a pattern indented into it. And then the spandrel, which are the ones that are spanning from column to column, so to speak, are acid etched, and then the columns themselves that actually have those holes in them, those are going to be brushed concrete. So yeah, so we just had a meeting yesterday. They brought in the samples, and we're feeling really good about it. And of course, we saved $1 million, so good thing. So, you want to go to the estimate? Any questions?
Was there some discussion about doing some screens so the snow didn't come in on the sides?
You know, we haven't done that. We took that out of. I mean, we originally were talking about that. We do have some screens actually in the columns for different reasons, but it was like a couple $1 million to do that. And so the nice thing is right now we feel we'd be able to add it at any time, and that might be something that we would do. And it might be only, we could conceivably do it maybe on just the northwest side. But the way that the ramp's designed and the way we're doing what we have right now for grills in there, it'll be really easy to apply. So I could see that possibly going through a winter and seeing what happens, and then maybe experiment with that a little bit.
Okay. I know that Sioux Falls just placed their Skyway, and it was a prefab one. What's the price difference, or is that something you're looking at or considering?
No, Sioux Falls is much smaller. It's straight. Ours have curves, slanted in it. So yeah, no, it's going to be built on site. So a lot of the big pieces will come in, trusses will come in big pieces, or actually could be erected on site and then set in place. But from a complete unit, no. We have a very tenuous detail for our slanted glass that Oliver and Joe are real excited about. And so it's something we worked out the last time we did it. So we need to build that on site. If we scroll up on this estimate, you see, I'm going to just kind of give you the big picture. So currently we're at $43,508,000, and our previous estimate was $43,309,000. So we're like a couple of $100,000 over our budget. So really sitting good. And in that, there's about $16.5 million that is a penciled number that we have for precast. So it shores that estimate up really well, almost half. The temporary parking lot has gotten larger. I think we originally were talking about 250 stalls, and I think everybody now is kind of thinking we should do 350 stalls. It really has to do with snow. So, if we had a year like this year, probably 250 would be fine. But if we don't, then we'll hold. So right now, that's a new number. Doing a real thin piece of asphalt, and not having a gravel parking lot. Just didn't think it made sense to try to drag your suitcase through a gravel parking lot. So we're doing a real thin layer We're talking about how to do that with Jeff and Meat Hunt.
That number is the installation and the removal.
Correct.
Does that also include some enclosures? If you're waiting for a shuttle outside, like a
Yeah,
pickup spot?
I don't think we have that yet,
Okay.
but that's something that we certainly could talk about. Yeah.
What do you mean by enclosure?
Like a
Like
like a bus
like a
stop,
bus
like there's
station.
like a three-sided, area where people meet for the pickup of the shuttle.
Yeah, right now we don't have that in the price, but we certainly could.
Do you think it's necessary?
I have no idea. I mean, I think it would probably be a nice idea. It's just how big and where and how many. So that's the big issue. Depending on how the shuttle's working, is there, are you just waiting in your car until the shuttle comes and that kind of thing? Or you're not standing outside.
Right.
The Skyway and the rest of the estimate is pretty much the same that we had before because we haven't updated that yet. Like I said, the Skyway is going to be getting underway in about a week, and it shouldn't take us but a couple of months to get that done. So we're expecting on the 23rd to have a GMP for not only our precast price but also our footings and foundations. So.
Any other questions? Further discussion?
Terry, did you want to go over this? Talk about, Darren has, I can
Okay.
speak to it, I guess. Darren has. It's the last one there.
This one.
Yep. Are you sharing it? So I guess what I thought I would do is just kind of give an overview of what parking would look like out at the airport here over the next year. So with the two large projects going on, if we want to start up in the upper right there. So the green area there just depicts what the project site for the terminal expansion will be cordoned off from parking. So it's basically it consumes some of the employee parking lot that exists today. Once the fence is set up, there's going to be roughly 100 employee parking stalls left over, obviously for employees' use. That begins on the 6th of May, 2024. Then with the parking garage project shown in red there, there's roughly, that starts in June, around June 24 approximately to June 25, so the next one for 12-month period of time. There's roughly 338, give or take, stalls lost because of the construction fence and that project site. So the question becomes what do they do with temporary parking that Terry is talking about. So the kind of the chosen site there is shown in blue. There's roughly 300, and I think just the way it laid out was like 366 stalls. So you're roughly a 1-for-1 replacement. The temporary, we had, Terry mentioned it, but it's a temporary lot. We have a rough estimate, I think it was right around $780,000, $790,000 just to build right on the top. So put in gravel, put in asphalt pavement. I think the asphalt is key just from, what Terry mentioned, people just from a customer service standpoint, but then also allows the opportunity to paint stripes on the surface. If you just put gravel lot, I mean, you're not going to realize the efficiency of parking, and you probably need twice the size of a parking lot if it was a gravel surface. So I think that makes sense. It does need to come out because if it was a permanent lot, we'd have to put in stormwater detention. So that just raises the cost. So any questions on that, I guess?
Mr. Chairman, just any reason why I'm not in the middle there?
The middle south of the exit plaza.
Right.
That was, we had originally looked at that, John, and we had moved it over to the blue area from the standpoint of it's realistically, it's not any further. And then also if it's south of the exit plaza, travelers need to cross that busy road right there. So it just becomes a real safety concern. So we thought moving it over to the west side of the lot, people could get right into the employee parking lot, get them off the busy streets, and then just basically there'd be a pathway up to the terminal building. Economy lot, I'm sorry. So
That's just wayfinding seemed to be right. If the one were full, just seeing it right across the street would just maybe be a
yeah,
little
we'll
more
definitely
intuitive.
have to sign it appropriately so people can find it.
And Jeff, did you have any recommendations, or with working with S&P on where we're gonna put employees, like the lost spaces as well as short-term parking revenue generation?
From a permanent standpoint,
No, from a temporary.
the temporary standpoint, the employees will, there's still 100 employee stalls just south of that green area for use during 2024. Short term, I mean, basically, it's, they're just pushed into the long-term economy lots and then the blue area. So they're all gone. So we had talked to, there's a rental car overflow lot that's north of the wash facility. We had a meeting with the rental car companies to see if they'd be open to the idea of using that as a closer lot, and then on a temporary basis, and then move the overflow lot to the blue area. And I guess they weren't in favor of that, and just from a safety standpoint. So.
Any further questions? Discussion?
I hope that with you and S&P that we can come with some sort of a priority parking that we can generate try to recoup some of that short-term parking loss.
Correct, and I don't know if Greg Pearson is on. He said he was going to be, but mine talking to him yesterday was this temporary lot will have like a QR code that people will have to scan, and then they're going to monitor the license plates on a daily basis just to make sure that people actually did scan the code and paid. So there's not going to be any type of controlled access in and out. It's basically on your honor to skew the QR code, but then they're enforcing it from.
Greg is on, and I saw his name there, I think. So it's just like at the university, it's on the honor system.
Yeah, it is on the honor system, but at the same time, we do have the ability to do enforcement, however the airport sees fit. So we actually have license plate inventory, and we also have a report that we can run each day to see who has actually paid. So we can either ticket the offenders or, tow the offenders, just pretty much whatever position we decide to take with respects to enforcement. So they may get an hour or two, if they're able to, time it just right. But they definitely won't end up receiving a full day's stay without having some type of enforcement applied to them. And Paula, just to circle back to your question about the shelters as well, we have found that it's kind of a mixed bag of shelters or trunk-to-trunk service. Our recommendation would be trunk-to-trunk with respects to this lot, just to make sure that it's customer-centric. We would obviously have to kind of put the word out and educate the passengers in advance of what to do, and do not exit your vehicle until you see the shuttle. And we found that has actually worked better, just from the standpoint of the cost associated with the shelters. While the shelters are great, it's just your climate. You have to make a person walk to the shelter. They have to find the shelter, and you have to have enough shelters in order for them to for it to really pay dividends. So the trunk-to-trunk service, we recently did that at Omaha Airport. We did some messaging, and it's really been adopted pretty well as well. And it'll save you some money as well, since this is a temporary lot.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Greg, do you have an estimate from the time you pull into the lot, pop your trunk, how long that's going to take?
We-
or how many
yeah.
poles we need to what level of service we're going to try and target here. I mean, if somebody pulls in and they have to wait 15, 20 minutes, are they going to get frustrated and walk? What's kind of the trade-off there? I know we can't have shuttles every minute, but
Yeah, we would have a trade-off. You're 100% correct. We would probably likely need to run 2 shuttles at the same time. Anytime this lot is in service, which is throughout the construction period. The headway time is what you're referring to. We would need to calculate and see what the distance is and time it takes to drive from the lot to the terminal, pick up passengers, and then get back to the lot as well. And so we'll have some dispatching going on with respects to one shuttle will be in the lot picking up, one shuttle will be in the terminal picking up. And it'll just kind of be a constant rotation. I couldn't imagine it would be any more than 7 minutes just based off the distance, eyeballing it that it takes to safely drive from the parking lot to the front of the terminal. We have a comparable location where we do shuttle service, and the distance is pretty close to the same, and it's about a 6 to 7 minute headway time. But again, we can kind of, calculate the distance and give you a hard number, but I couldn't imagine it'd be more than 6 or 7 minutes.
I guess that's something we'll have to promote in educating the public. But when a large plane comes in, do you get a real backup in the terminal after baggage pickup? When you're dumping a couple hundred people in there all at once, or what happens there?
Yeah, that can definitely happen. We would need to really monitor the flight schedules. Again, thinking we would probably run 2 most of the day, but maybe some points of the day we could probably drop down to 1. It just really depends. But yeah, that may be a point in time where your headway time would be, definitely 7 minutes, if you will. But yeah, that's really.
Do you drop off just at certain points when they're returning, or you don't take everybody back to their car, do you?
No, that would be an end of an aisle type situation. Pretty much. Usually, it's a larger lot where you almost have it sectioned off A, B, C, and we would even pass out little cards that says you're in section A. But in this particular case, 366 spaces. We would get them in the general vicinity because likely when you drop it off, you're able to pick up somebody else as well at the same time.
Greg, what's your deadline for the board to make a decision on valet service?
I will be getting you a budget for valet, a performer, and also a performer for the shuttle service this week. If the board chooses to go forward, we will be looking at approximately a 60-day lead time on valet to get that in place and up and running. So yeah, that's time to recruit, get the software online and so forth. So I'll definitely have that in your hands this week, Sean.
Thank you.
Any other questions, discussion? Nothing further? Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay. Item number 7, receive update regarding passenger terminal and renovation projects.
All right, good morning, everybody. So I don't want to steal Terry's thunder. He had some great images there, the parking ramp with the addition in the background. I really just have a schedule and budget update for you on the terminal. So a lot of things happening in the background. First of all, for the schedule, we're still on track for mobilizing. McGough's going to be mobilizing, looking at May 6th, and then they're also looking at penciled in about May 14th after the board meeting to have a formal groundbreaking. So that's in the works now in the background, and we'll work around some of the airline departures around that time to maybe to make sure that there isn't going to be any background noise during the event. I think we were looking at 10 a.m., but more to come on that. The elevator is on schedule to be completed mid-May. We just want to make sure that the two-way communication for the fire department and then the terrazzo is installed. And then structural for the structural package. So GMP1 was the elevator. GMP2 was the structural package for the addition, which was approved, and McGuff is now going through what's called buyout. So they're getting all the purchase orders and subcontractors on board to get and shop drawings and submittals are starting to roll in on that. On the budget side, we have GMP3, which is the addition and the renovation, and that is out for bids right now. So bids are due April 25th, and following that, we're currently on budget, and we will update, or McGough will update that estimate after the bids are due. So that's we also sent out to the group there the funding packages. So we hope that those will be helpful as the airport goes out and seeks other sources of funding, or if people want to donate and looking for sponsorship. So anything else we can do to help on that, please let us know. That's really all I have. Do you have any questions out there?
Mr. Chairman, who's coordinating the ribbon cutting, and will that'll be for the parking garage and the terminal expansion, I assume?
Yeah, that'll be McGough. They're putting that together. They're ordering the shovels and getting all that together. So more details to come on that. We just wanted to pencil in or do a save the date that it's they're looking at May.
I would suggest
May 14th.
I would suggest that we check with our state, local, and federal officials to get their schedules so we don't kind of miss anybody in that process.
It's all in motion, but it's going to come down to when's available.
Well, yeah, I would make sure we reach out to, like I said, we get significant funds coming federal and state, and the local elected officials should all be alerted to a time there. Brendan, I had one other question here.
Sure.
And maybe Rick Berg can jump in on this, but I was kind of surprised in reading the emails, kind of going back and forth on all this, that there was a statement that the baggage claim was sort of a sacrificial lamb, and there was consideration that no remodeling would be done in that baggage claim area. And maybe I missed it somewhere. I don't remember talking about that. I think that is kind of a significant change, and I'm just wondering how that communication should be taking place so that we're up to date on it. Because that really surprised me. I hadn't heard that discussed up until I saw that, and it surprised me. So maybe it's on me. Maybe I missed it. I know, Rick, you talked about having a method of communication to the board changes on that. So could you just help me there?
Yeah.
If I missed it, I'm sorry. But if we have, how should we be getting that information?
So yeah, first, when it was on the chopping block, that was prior to our discussion of like how much detail we wanted to bring in. It was on a list of we had like 25 items when we first came in over budget, and then we did a round of cuts. What I and to bring it back, and then the board came forward with yeah, we can bump the budget up to 6 million to cover what we were evaluating on cutting out. the baggage claim, I don't want you to misunderstand. It's getting renovated. It's just no walls are moving. It's getting a refresh. Ceiling is getting refreshed. New mechanicals and electrical all throughout there. There's just and new baggage carousels. But it's nothing's getting rearranged.
Just the way it was presented, and maybe that's more what we need here. It really was just kind of a shock when you're reading that it appeared that it was, as you said, the baggage claim chopping. That's it's a major change there, and I'm just not sure how we can stay kind of plugged the whole thing, because we did do, I do remember the meeting where you came in and you asked for 12 to 6 to 3 to whatever, and we worked through all that, but I did not in that discussion pick up, that change, and maybe it's subtle, but to me that's a material change, and it's something I think as a board member, I'm ready to make the tough decisions, but if we say, well, why didn't we do more in baggage claim? Well, the trade-off was we had to cover this, not just kind of, that was an easy thing to cut. I don't know.
Yeah, and when we talk about baggage claim, we kind of group in the rental area too. It's kind of that whole space, and then there's also a space above there that there's going to be a walkway and a rail. So it was really that entire atrium space that we were evaluating. And there were a lot of items. We had 25 items that we were running through. Absolutely, we were going through that originally with the airport on what could be considered and what was out of the question. So since then we did have the discussion on what is going to be cut out moving forward, and the board's preference for involvement in those discussions. And most definitely, now that we're more dialed in and we're closer to construction, we've got more feedback on estimates. We're going to be able to really hone in on specific items in the event that we have to have those hard discussions. It will come to the board for a final decision.
Brandon, just help me there when you say you had the discussion with the airport.
Yep.
That wasn't with the board, or when you had the discussion with the airport, who are you?
When we were first going through the VE, the steps that we would take is McGough and the design team came up with potential ways to save money and bring the project back in budget, and then we'll go to Sean and Darren and get their take on these items if it's practical to consider, and if it is, then we would go to the board to go through the list and saying this is where we're thinking we could save some money.
And Rick Berg, maybe you can jump in here, but I kind of thought that's what you were getting to in your process, that then there would be a recommendation from you, Brandon, or somehow our representative as to what should be done there.
Yes.
And somewhere, maybe, and again, I feel bad, maybe I missed something here, but I just don't remember that happening.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I mean, we can go back. I would have to look at what dates it was, but I know we when we were having those discussions on the budget, those were the VE items. We had a list of VE items we were going through.
Chair, I think the term no major structural is probably the line where, because there's nothing structurally changing, I think that's probably where the line was.
It's being moved or anything like that. It's just the others.
Mr. Chairman?
Just a minute, Paul first, and then Rick.
Mr. Chairman, I was just gonna say, Brandon, I guess when you said chopping block, that maybe insinuates that nothing's gonna be done in baggage claim, and I mean, maybe if you had a plan A, plan B, plan C for different cost, different things that we could, ways that we could, make sure that that space is cohesive with the rest of the new terminal, it gave us different choices, cost wise, then we would have a better, handle on how we can make that space, reflective of the rest of the new terminal, instead of just saying chopping block, because, like you mentioned, ceiling, signage, like it'd be nice for people when they get off the plane to say, baggage claim 1 is going to do the luggage for the flight from Minneapolis, and baggage claim 2 is going to do the flight from Chicago or something. So I think that there's different things that we can do in that area, or that probably should be done. But it would be nice maybe if we had a tiered system, like a plan A, plan B, plan C, or if you came to the board and said, this is how much it's going to cost, or here's another thing that we could eliminate to make sure that we get baggage claim done.
So I guess maybe I'm misunderstanding. So we are renovating the baggage claim, right? Everybody understands that. That is in the scope.
Okay, we just haven't had or any renderings yet.
Yeah. So I mean, what we have, and we don't. Unfortunately, I don't have in our budget to render every space, because renderings can get pretty expensive. So we did the fly through, which did have kind of a down view showing that the finishes run into the existing terminal and down into baggage claim. We are replacing all the casework, as I mentioned before, in the rental areas. All the finishes in there. You're going to have the railings above where the walkways are going to be. All the lighting, all the ceilings. They're getting replaced. It's just the spatial arrangements. Where the carousel is going to be, where the stair tower is, storage pod, like nothing's changing there. So I understand a project of this size. There's a lot there. There's a lot to take in, and as we show a palette of finishes, there is some level of visioning to see where those are going to be applied. And so when we say, yeah, this is going to be in the baggage claim, this is going to be in the restrooms. Yeah, there is a level of vision that we ask of you to consider when you're looking at those, and we can drill down into the spaces, but we don't render every space.
Okay. Just like to be kept in the loop. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Rick Berg, you're up.
So I think, a couple of things. One is Brandon is our point person on this project. And so I think that's one thing that I think what John is referring to, we have issues with McGough or anyone else. Brandon's the point guy for that. And so I appreciate Brandon in that role. I mean, it's going to be critical that you keep us informed on, improve the communications or make sure that we know. I'm thinking, the question, and kind of digging into the weeds a little bit, I think the question on the baggage issue is we want to make sure that our baggage claims area is, maybe not state of the art, but we want it functioning as well as it can be. And it should reflect the standards of our new terminal and some of these issues that relate to shortage of labor, making things more efficient. We want to make sure that we're achieving that probably, first, and then how it looks is probably second. But I think the main thing is to make sure that we're doing what we need to in the function of it.
And to your point, to reassure you, we had 3 rounds of listening sessions with the rental and the users of those spaces to make sure that the functionality of the space will be improved. So I think make sure that the rental car areas and the queuing space and how it interfaces with the baggage claim. We went through the exercise of ensuring there was enough space there during the design, and that they would be comfortable with it. So just a little background. We have talked about that space extensively. It will blend. The finishes will blend seamlessly with the rest of the finishes in the terminal. We will have updated signage over there and updated finishes throughout.
Okay, any other discussion? If not, a motion.
Just one more thing, Mr. Chairman. Brandon, if you'd like to have a board member participate in those listening sessions, I'd be happy to join in.
Well, yeah, Paula, we had those. We already had all the listening sessions with the groups throughout design here over this last year.
Okay.
We'll move on to item number 8. Receive communication from National Weather Service extending their leases for the airfield, ASOS, and East Side Terminal.
Quite a while for the government to get us their lease extensions. So this will be for the space out on the airfield, east of Bravo, south of 927 for the weather reporting station, and then for a small room in the second floor of the East Terminal for the Weather Service had occupied for many years. So
Motion. That's it. We can provide that for free.
we have no choice.
It's nice to support the federal government. They need all the help they can get.
Is there a motion? Motion? Is there a second?
I second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Motion carried. Item 9, receive communications from Midco requesting easement to install fiber in the north central aviation area.
Service into the North GA, the Fargo Jet Center, Customs area, and then for all the tenants that are in the North GA area, the only change is they requested a 10-foot easement. Our easements are 3 foot or less. They've agreed to a 3-foot easement on there. So they will have a survey provided to us, a legal description provided to us that will be recorded with the county. They're also working on an easement retroactively. Evidently, they put in their service to the East Terminal without our knowledge. They'd asked for an extension to that, as you're aware. That was brought to the board, and we're waiting for more engineering to prepare the legal description for the existing fiber that was installed without our knowledge, and then also for the extensions. That'll come back to the board.
Mr. Chair. Move to accept with one condition. Any egress and or placement of fiber on the airport property needs to be mapped. Mapped for the airport's benefit and any other contract work.
It is, and we'll get that to Jeff at Meeting. The other thing is that Midco is responsible to relocate the fiber at their expense to accommodate any airport improvements.
Okay. Motion's been made. Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Same sign. Motion carried. Item 10, receive construction phase engineering services agreement from JK Engineers Incorporated for electrical vault modifications, time and material not to exceed $22,920.
So this is the next phase of the electrical bid that you awarded for the electric vault improvements. Joel has been our electrical engineer for years in conjunction with Mead and Hunter Alteg, and this would be for his services. He's the one that went out, put the RFP together, received all the bids for the electrical improvements that we made to the airfield vault and the airfield. So
Mr. Chair, one question. Are they able to get vaults and equipment now? Is it becoming more available?
I believe it is. The one thing is that there's a transfer switch that's part of this project for transferring from to generator power. That's a long lead time. So we had that discussion early on when the project was bid. Is once the contract's issued, get that they've ordered ASAP, so.
Motion.
Okay. Did you make the motion? Motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call, please.
Hingham. Berg.
Aye.
Aye.
Beckman.
Aye.
Captain.
Aye. Okay. Receive bid tabulation and recommendation of award from Mead and Hunt for South Perimeter Road realignment.
Jeff, anything you want to say here?
I believe all you received the bid tabulation in your packets. Last week we opened bids to realign the South Perimeter Road. The reason for this is basically starting the 6th of May, McGough is going to basically take this section of the road out of service, basically, because with their construction fence. So this road will be just extended north to the terminal taxiway. We had sent it out for bid in last year. Didn't get any bids, so it kind of forced us into bidding it out now. It's a short duration project over the course of 2 to 3 weeks to get done. Received 3 bids, one from Northern Improvement, one from Border States Paving, and the last from J.R. Furchie. Northern Improvement was a low bidder at $194,509. We had reviewed their bid. Everything is in line as far as Buy American DBE requirements. Everything is just all in line. Recommend the Airport Authority awarded to Northern Improvement. So they've done a lot of work out here. So,
Mr. Chair, move to accept the consultant's recommendation for.
Okay, motion's been made.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Roll call, please.
Hingham.
Aye.
Berg.
Aye.
Aye.
Beckman.
Aye.
Captain.
Aye. Item 12, Ivy Olin introduction regarding art in the terminal project.
Mr. Chair, Ivy was not able to make it today, and I did send an email to everybody. She lost her voice, so she's asking if she could be on the agenda for the 23rd. And because she does have several points to cover that maybe would have discussion, if she was able to make a short presentation at the meeting, and then we could meet afterward, so that if people want to have more discussion, it won't lengthen the time of our board meeting, if it's agreeable to everybody.
All right, very good.
Okay.
Item 13.
Got one thing. Chief Noyes, are you still on?
Chad.
You want to?
Yeah, I'm on.
Just a real brief update on where we're at with the triennial exercise.
We'll have our final planning meeting on April 18th. We've got to send out notification to the airport tenants, and then you have the disaster drill scheduled for May 21st. The board members are invited to come and view that if they would like. I just need a list of who wants to be there so we can get that all set up.
I will.
Okay. That's all we have.
Okay. John,
Are you done, Mr. Chairman, with the meeting?
as soon as I get a motion to adjourn, unless you want to speak before that.
I would, if I could take
Okay.
a moment, please. And I don't know how we're going to officially thank Rick Ingen for his service on the board, but I just want to say I've worked so closely with Rick Ingen these last several years, and when we were going into our approach to figure out our future, Rick was my primary contact person on behalf of the city, and we had more communications than anybody can calculate. The pattern is that the mayor is reinventing this board all the time. I'm assuming you know that there's a new appointment coming, and that will be, I believe, approved at the city commission on April 15th. But I sincerely thank you for your public service and for your work on behalf of the community and the people, for everything you've done, Rick.
I'd like to take the opportunity to do the same thing. I was unaware that decisions had been made, heard from the city on it, or like that, so. But yes, I was hoping that Rick would have been reappointed, but that be as it may. I'd like to thank you very much. It's going to be sorely missed.
I believe there's a plaque coming at some point. I don't know when and where, but
Okay, item 13, motion
Oh, sorry.
to,
I'm sorry, I preempted your
No, no, no.
no, you're fine.
I'm not seeing number 13. Before we adjourn,
That is item 13.
okay. We had discussed getting an update on the RFP for the play area.
Thursday is the meeting.
Well, that is not on the agenda, so let's put it on the, if you want to talk about it, put it on the agenda for next meeting.
I apologize. There was an email from Sean stating that we could discuss it.
So Thursday, Clear Channel will give me an update on where they're at with the process. That's what I put back in the email. I don't have anything to present you.
Okay, just looking for an update. So
Motion to adjourn? Second?
second.
Motion to adjourn.